Okay, guys, good morning. We're going to continue to work on motion today. Yesterday's lesson was on parts of motion. Today we're going to read about Sir Isaac Newton. But what I want to do first is there's some questions that go with this. So the reading is, I think, two pages. Then there's, let me see how many questions there are. There's about 10 questions that go with it. Let's just read the questions first so we kind of know what we're looking for. So it asks, what is Sir Isaac Newton's third law of motion? What does the author describe in the passage? It says, read the following sentence. It says, when LeBron James jumps, he is not unlike a rocket launching off the ground. The rocket uses its engines to push down the surface of the earth. This is the action that Newton mentions in his third law. Based on this information, LeBron James jumping and the rocket using engine push down on the surface of the earth examples of what part in Newton's third law. So the third law is going to be important. The force created when the court pushes LeBron James upward is equal to what force? Then it's going to ask, what is the main idea of the passage? This asks you to read this little part here that's going to be in the passage. Choose the best answer. So it's going to be those four. And then it's going to ask you to describe how a rocket launches off the ground from using information from the passage. And when LeBron James jumps, he is driving the force in the court. How is this force created? So it's going to be how force is created. And this one is about LeBron jumping to dunk a basketball with Newton's third law of motion. Okay. So the third law of motion is going to be important. So let's go ahead and read this. Okay. So it says, the English physicist and mathematician Sir Isaac Newton discovered three basic laws of motion. The first law says that objects at rest and objects in motion remain at rest or in motion unless they are acted upon by an unbalanced force. The second law says that when a force acts on a mass, acceleration is produced. The greater the object's mass, the more force is needed to accelerate it. But Newton's third law of motion that everyone remembers, for every action, the famous law reads, there's an equal and opposite reaction. A simpler way of saying this might be when you push an object, it pushes back. For every force, in other words, there's a reaction force equal in size. There are many ways to describe how the third law of motion works in the world of sports. One of the more interesting examples is the way LeBron James dunks a basketball. In order for LeBron James to score a slam dunk, he must exert a certain amount of force against the surface of the basketball court. LeBron James, the big man, 6'8", 245 pounds. He might be a little heavier than that now. When he is standing upright and his arms raised above the head, his reach extends to 8 feet, 10 1/4 inches. The rim of the basketball hoop exactly 10 feet high. For LeBron James to slam the ball, he must propel himself high enough that he can force the basketball, which is approximately almost 9.39 inches in the diameter of the hoop. This requires that he reach well above the height of the rim, which he does fairly often. In the photographs and slow motion replay of LeBron James dunking the basketball, his elbow is often equal to the height of the rim. LeBron James may be tall, strong, and fast. He may be extremely mobile and flexible, but it's no easy feat to dunk a basketball when you weigh 240 pounds. His vertical leap, that is the maximum he can reach when he jumps, around 44 inches. The average vertical leap in the National Basketball Association is about 27 inches. That means LeBron James, despite his large size, can jump more than 10 inches higher than most players in the NBA. This is a serious benefit in a game of basketball of inches, which how high someone jumps often means the difference between scoring and missing a shot. Why can LeBron James jump higher than other basketball players? The answer has to do with Newton's third law of motion. When LeBron James jumps, he is driving force into the court. That force is created by energy stored inside his muscles, and how high he jumps depends not just on how much energy he forces in the surface, but also how well he does it. Okay, so when LeBron James jumps, He is not unlike a rocket launching off the ground. The rocket uses engines to push down on the surface of the Earth. This is the action that Newton mentions in his third law. The reaction comes when the ground pushes the rocket upward using an equal amount of force. It may seem strange to think of the ground exerting force on an object, especially when a basketball player or a rocket ship. But this is what Sir Isaac Newton understood way back in 1687 when he published his most famous book, Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy. Newton would have been fascinated by LeBron James' jumping ability, but he also would have understood that it's not simply the strength of James' legs and able to jump so high. The stability of his body located in his core and his torso also contributes to the energy that forces into the ground. The energy and strength of LeBron James' entire body is what enables him to reach such fantastic heights. Watching LeBron dunk on television often causes people to think he is denying the force of gravity, which seems to pull us and other objects to the ground. In reality, no one can deny such force. LeBron James just happened to be so strong and agile. When he jumps in the air, he appears to be defying force and gravity. He almost seems capable of flying. Naturally, smaller basketball players require less force to dunk a basketball since they are lighter. They don't have to combat such gravitational pull. On the other hand, the fact that they are lighter means they do not have as much mass to store energy. The more muscle you have, the more energy you can force in the ground, the higher you can go. This is why professional basketball players, where am I here? I'm sorry, you guys. Let me see where that was. This is why professional basketball players here have no fat on their bodies at all. Fat does not store energy as well as muscle, but it still contributes to one body weight. Fat on a basketball player is equal to wearing a lead weight around the hips during a game. Obviously, this would hinder a player's performance, especially his ability to dunk. Physicists have spent time thinking about the physics of dunking. To remain in the air for 1 second, they say, they would have to vertical leap of 4 feet, which is higher than pretty much any basketball player of all time. One exception is Michael Jordan, who's believed to have a highest vertical leap of 48 inches or 4 feet of any professional basketball player. Michael Jordan was just 6 feet 6 inches tall, average for an NBA player, but his vertical leap placed his head about 6 inches above the rim. Best basketball player in history, also highest vertical leap, is no coincidence. Michael Jordan's body was strong, stable, in proportion in such a way that the force he pushed into the ground placed him above the rest. He's one of the best overall athletes in a game, and slam dunking ability was an indication of his prowess. Still, Michael Jordan often tucked his legs beneath him when he jumped to make it seem as he could was flying through the air. Even athletes with a 38 vertical inch, in other words, wish they could jump even higher. Okay, so this talks about remember we read this, what is Sir Isaac Newton's third law of motion. So if we go back up to here, but it's Newton's third law of motion that remembers. For every action, the famous law reads, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So that would be B. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Okay. So what does the author describe in the passage? Is it Newton's most famous book? How LeBron James developed his basketball skills? How Sir Isaac Newton came up with 3 basic laws of motion? How the way LeBron jumps basketball illustrate Newton's third law of motion? Okay, that would be D, because really it's talking about how LeBron is able to dunk. Okay, so it says, read the following sentence from the passage. When LeBron James jumps, he is not unlike a rocket launching off the ground. The rocket uses energy to push down on the surface of the Earth. This is the action that Newton mentions in the third law. Based on this information, LeBron James jumping and the rocket using energy to push down the surface of the Earth are examples of what part of Newton's third law. So when you push down, something goes up. So That would be the equal and opposite reaction of an action. I just want to double check that. That would be B, and all the answers are down here. Let me make sure. So number 3 would be C. So 3, the action which causes an equal and opposite reaction. So it's the action that causes an equal and opposite reaction. Okay. 4, the force created when the court, when LeBron James jumps upward, is equal to what force? So what do you guys think that is? Okay, so remember, so equal and opposite reaction. So when you push down, that equal reaction will take you up. That's why it talks about a rocket. So the rocket engines basically are pushing, they blow down on the ground, and the opposite reaction, that it propels the rocket up into the air. So number 4, you guys, is going to be, it would be B. It would be the force that LeBron James drives in the court when he jumps. So what is the main idea of this passage? That would be D. It's Newton's third law of motion can be examined using an example of how a basketball player jumping and rockets launching. Let me just double check. Yeah, 5 is D. Okay. 6. Read the following paragraph in the passage. LeBron James is a big man. He is 6'8" tall, weighs 240 pounds. When he's standing upright, his arms raised above his head. His reach extends to 8 feet 10 1/4 inches. How can the tone of the author be best described in this paragraph? Is this funny? Is he angry? Is it disinterested? Or is it factual? Well, those are all facts, you guys. Those things can't be disputed. The author said that those are all things that are true about LeBron James. So those are all facts. Okay, number 7. Choose the answer that best completes the sentence below. Blank. LeBron James has an impressive vertical leap of 44 inches. Michael Jordan holds the record with a vertical leap of 48 inches. So is it in contrast, for example, although initially? So you're kind of comparing LeBron's vertical leap to Michael Jordan's. So comparing is kind of comparing and contrasting. So you're comparing and contrasting. So LeBron has a 44, but Michael has a 48. So I think the best answer for 7 is going to be A, in contrast. Let me just double check. So 7 would be C. Let me see. Although LeBron James, okay, that makes a little more sense. So it's going to be C, although. In contrast wouldn't be, that would be okay. I guess the best would be although. Some of these, you guys, it isn't necessarily right or wrong. It says the best answer. So I guess the best would be although. In contrast would be okay. So C would be the best. Okay. And then 8, 9, and 10, you're just going to have to go back and read the passage and just summarize what these are asking for. And if you're unsure when you get to the bottom, here are the answers for 7, 8, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. So you guys, this is basically just remember the biggest thing you want to take away from this is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, so that was Newton's third law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, I'll be sending out the social studies link shortly. You guys have a wonderful day.